Today we are going to talk about absolute value. Absolute value is defined as the distance between a number and zero on a number line. We need to remember that distance is always positive. If you stand up right now and you are standing on an imaginary number line and you are standing at zero, if you move 3 spaces to your right, to positive right, you are taking positive 3 steps. Now, if you decide to go to that negative 3, you are still taking 3 steps. We can't take negative steps. We're not moving negative distance. So your absolute value will always be positive. Let's take a look at what that looks like. When we write that out in numbers, we use these symbols, these tall brackets, and our number goes inside. So this is read as the absolute value of -2. Now, the absolute value of -2, if we think about a number line, is 2 spaces from 0. So the absolute value of -2 is equal to 2. Let's try another one. If I have the absolute value of +2, again, thinking about where that 2 is on that number line, I am still moving 2 spaces. So the absolute value of +2 is also 2. I think it helps to take a look at this on a number line. So let's go ahead and do that. If we draw ourselves a number line, it doesn't have to be so big. 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. And I am looking at the absolute value of -2 to start. How far is -2 away from 0? Well, it's 1, 2 units. Therefore, the absolute value of -2 is +2. If we look at that +2 and we count the number of spaces that is away from 0, we still also actually have 2. So the absolute value of +2 is also equal to 2. All right, let's try a couple of practice problems. So down here it says find the absolute value of 3 and explain what that means. So I'm going to go ahead and label my number line. I'm going to start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. All right, so I am looking for the absolute value of +3. Well, my 3 is right here. And now I count. +3 is 1, 2, 3 units from 0. Therefore, the absolute value of +3 is 3. I would explain what that means by saying 3 is 3 spaces or units from 0. All right, let's look at number 2 here. It says find the absolute value of -12. Now our numbers line's a little small, so I'm actually going to count by, let's count by 4s. So you've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. You can choose what you want to count by to model this. I want to make sure that I get all of my points in here. All right, so I am finding this time the absolute value of -12. Now, remember that each of these spaces are 4. So I move 4, 8, 12 spaces to get to 0, meaning the absolute value of -12, the absolute value of -12, the distance away from 0 that -12 is 12. So again, that explanation would be that -12 is 12 units from 0. All right, that's what absolute value is. It's always, always positive. So let's go ahead and try two more different types of examples. The first thing that we might see are comparing our absolute value. So if I'm comparing 2 and -5, I like to simplify it. So I don't want to just use the numbers I have here. I want them to be in simpler form. So 2 stays 2, but the absolute value of -5 can be simplified down to its most simple form. The absolute value of -5 is +5. So now I can compare more appropriately. Okay, it's easier for me to see that 5 is bigger than 2 than to see that the absolute value of -5 is greater than 2. 5 is greater. So if I were to compare this, I would say 2 is less than the absolute value of -5. Let's try this second one. We are comparing -3 and the absolute value of 3. Well, -3 stays the same, whereas the absolute value of 3 is going to just simply be 3. I simplify that down. Now I say, okay, which one is greater? 3 is greater. When I compare my two numbers here, I would say -3 is less than the absolute value of 3. Now, we can do that down here as well when we are ordering our numbers from least to greatest. So if I want to put these values in order from least to greatest, I'm going to want to simplify again. So I say, okay, what's the absolute value of -5? Well, that's 5. This is an easier number to manage. So I'm just going to simplify it for now. -4 stays, 0 stays, the absolute value of -1 is +1, and then we have 2. So now I would rearrange and say, okay, -4, 0, 1, 2, 5. But I want to go ahead and revert back to this original format. So your final answer here would be -4, 0, the absolute value of -1, +2, and the absolute value of -5.